Hello, and welcome to the Weekly Scroll Podcast. My name is Ryan.
And I'm Hunter, and I bust bugs.
And joining us today is a very special guest. This is Garry Snow of Dieku Podcast. How are you doing this morning, Garry?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on the show. I watch it all the time, so it's one of my favorite channels and podcasts.
Thanks for being here. We also watch your show, so This is great.
It's nice
a big
crossover podcast
hey,
episode.
Listen, corporate synergy, guys.
We got to start getting more like the podcast people together to do more stuff. You know,
fight. Let's see an anchor man. Fight.
That's what we got to do. But so Garry, so for those who might not watch your show as much as we do, who the heck are you? Who's Garry Snow?
Well, I'm Garry Snow. I run the Dieku Podcast, which we feature indie game designers primarily and give them an opportunity to talk about their new games. There's like a little sub channel of the Dieku Podcast where I offer it out to like maybe new designers that just have a game that they want to pitch, and I call it Game Pitch. And people are welcome to come on and share their game and try to get some traction, because as you know, indie game design is very tough business to be in. There's not a lot of money in it, if any money, that is. And so my goal of the channel is just to give a voice to indie game designers, and to also have some like really experienced designers on the show that could provide advice for up and coming designers.
We respect that mission.
Absolutely. And you have, here's the thing. When we first started the podcast, I did not expect, like, we never thought we would do interviews ever. And then randomly we got Johan Nohr to come on because he was like, hey, someone interview me. And then suddenly we started doing it. But to this day, I still have this like deep fear in me of like reaching out to these people that I see as celebrities, being like, hey, want to come talk to me? So like I get to watch your podcast and actually hear them like talk about the stuff they have going on. So it's really great to be able to actually see those conversations.
I still have imposter syndrome. Like some of the guests that I have on there, I'm like, I talk to them and I'm like a big fan. I have to kind of tone it down how big of a fan I am of their work. But for the most part, I just like, at first I kind of was very shy about reaching out. And then after a while I went like, I just like enjoy it so much. And I enjoy the aspect of like talking game design and talking the TTRPG space, and especially indie games. I just kind of got over that, but I still have imposter syndrome.
Yeah, so, I just accept that I'm bad at this and have no business doing this. And the imposter syndrome is just gone now.
There you go. That works. I know I'm bad at it, but I try not to be. So
we're just happy to be here, frankly.
That's what it is. So talking about all these people that you talk to, like how did that start? Like, first of all, I guess let's go all the way back. What got you into tabletop role-playing games in the first place? And then how did that transition into the podcast you have now and actually being able to talk to people and bring them on?
Sure, yeah. Let's go in the Wayback Machine. I discovered Dungeons and Dragons through a red box. Some kid brought it to school one day, and I was like immediately hooked. And this was like in 85, 86. For me, where they brought it, and then it was like instead of out playing sports at recess, I was like, let's play D&D, and I was just like totally into it, and it just kind of kept growing as far as what I enjoyed doing. But it's funny, you kind of like growing up in the 80s, you see those like 80s genre teen movies and stuff like that, and there's the jocks and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So I happened to be like a good hockey player. And it was always a little bit odd because like, as I got older, I still loved playing Dungeons and Dragons, and, where the whole city would come watch a hockey game. And then immediately after the hockey game, I'd like get dressed really quickly and run over to my friend's place to roll D20s, where all the other players were going out to meet girls and, do cool things. And I was just like, no, I want to play D&D.
Hey man, rolling dice is cool,
Yeah. Hey, D&D is great now. It's a whole lifestyle brand, It is It's in the social a smart word is escaping me, but it's the fabric of everything now. It's on a TV show, so
Yeah. Well, when I grew up, you spoke of it in hushed tones. You did not kind of let people know that you did it. I remember like sneaking out on road trips to go to a game store in a big city and like sneak back a Champions game, like, and sneak it into my luggage because it just was that kind of like at the time. But over the years, I've just been like so happy that, like you said, kind of nerd culture, so to speak, has kind of grown. And periodically I would kind of dip my toes back into the TTRPG space because I kind of hit my wall when I was like playing Palladium Rifts, which is, I always say, Palladium Rifts is like the best setting I think has ever been made for role-playing games. However, the rules and the system were so cumbersome and so clunky. I just like, it was a pain to GM. Now there's a Savage Worlds Rift, so like I actually haven't given that a shot yet, but I hope maybe sometime soon. But anyways, I kind of hit the wall, and then life catches up with you, and you get married, and you have kids, and you have a career, and every now and again I would dip my toes in, like during the D20 modern era. I was like, oh, maybe I should finally design that game, because I have a game that I printed out on a dot matrix paper with the perforated edges. Like, that's how long ago I've been designing games. I just I've got so much stuff from that era of me making my own games and trying different things. And I would dip my toes back in, but life gets busy. And then finally, probably about 5 or 6 years ago, my two daughters are a little bit older, and I had a little bit more free time. And between like thinking about designing games after all these years, and my background's in like multimedia marketing communications. So I always, even when I took my courses, and maybe, sorry for this aside, when I went to university, at the time, the internet was fairly new. And I went into this community college because I was like a deadbeat tree planter. That's a Canadian thing that you probably, like, okay. It was a summer job. I was hippy dippy. I had a 69 Volkswagen van.
Nice.
And I'd spend my summers tree planting with all the other kind of bums out there. And then I just snowboarded in the winter, and that was kind of my thing. And then finally I met my future wife, and I said, oh, I better get a career. So I went into this community college, and on the board, they had a multimedia program. I didn't understand anything about the internet or anything like that, but there's one program for graphic design. And I always wanted to make role-playing games. And if I can learn how to be a graphic designer, maybe this program is for me. And from that, my career just kind of like grew and grew and grew to the point where now I'm like a communications professional. And I don't know if I got off track there, but anyways, I've always wanted to design games, is the moral of the story. And now I'm able to do it.
Very cool. Yeah. There is no track on the show. It's kind of just a very free form thing.
Yeah. Well, so it's interesting too, because we, I was like, hey, do you have a logo or anything? And then I get this folder, and it's more assets than I've ever seen for anything we've ever reviewed. So you can definitely see the multimedia aspect, and it's and it's great. I mean, it helps us a ton to get so much information and so much stuff we can use part of the show. And for those watching, the slideshow above is like half of a document explaining, like a pitch document explaining the game, and it's just so well put together. So, I mean, you can definitely tell you brought work into this, and it's cool to see.
Well, even on my channel, when I do the game pitch, I ask designers, like new designers, like, give me a slide deck that we can talk to during the game. And sometimes I get like a whole wall of text on a PowerPoint slide, and I always go, no, like, I want the vibes, like just put a few words or a couple sentences on there. I want the vibe of the game. Like, that's what sells it. And I often refer back to, there's a Stranger Things Bible, and there's a link on my website to it, where I always tell people, go check that out. Like, the Duffer Brothers for Stranger Things basically made a PDF referring back to popular culture and media that they were building the world of Stranger Things based upon. And that's what sold the concept to Netflix, and that's what got it made. And that's the same thing with your games. Like, you should be able to like put together a deck that like really just like is oozing with reference and oozing with like vibes that people want to know about.
Well, not only that, and I don't know how you feel. I mean, we're in a similar space. What's really helpful if you want people to like review your games too, something that I have to do a lot of times, is having like a PNG in multiple colors of your logo that you can give to people to post on things, and having like a 1 to 2 line, just this is a TTRPG that does X, Y, and Z, and like that's it. Because a lot of times I'll go to like an itch page or something, and I have to like pull from 3 paragraphs and say, just to get a pitch. And so having just a 1 or 2 line pitch and having, you know, logos and 1 or 2 assets that, you know, so you can send to somebody will make people, it'll make it a lot easier for people to review your game, which will make it a lot easier to get your game out there for people to see. So
yeah, for us to talk about it so you can, you know, get more people looking at your game.
That's probably from my film background too, is the log line. You've got like, you know, the 60-word log line and 120-word log line, and you just kind of have it so that the media can kind of just copy paste, because media is busy. Like they don't have time to actually like delve right into the guts of your game. They just want the highlights and be able to copy paste it in.
It does make sense.
Yeah. I mean, I can't tell you the number of times I've taken a document and had to like export it at like 12,000 DPI so I can rip it out on Illustrator for a logo. I mean, I'm good at it now, but you know, it is helpful to just have like a PNG. So tabletop gaming, that's what we were just talking about, and your history in it. How did that transition, you know, from your marketing, multimedia, and from Dungeons and Dragons as a kid into the Dieku podcast itself? And like, why did you choose specifically like the long form kind of interview to start with, and from there?
I've always loved like long form interviews, like, and with podcasts, I would just absolutely love them. And one of my, I used to watch Charlie Rose, which now he's kind of a disgraced figure, but I used to love watching his interviews, and just like, he would sit there and delve into areas that you just don't get in that kind of 5-minute like highlight. And just, I think the authentic person generally comes out after about an hour of like talking, and people get a better sense of it. And so when you start delving into somebody's background and their history and kind of what makes them tick, and then you can see how their decision-making process happens. And I just find it fascinating, because you get all these interesting people that come on the show. They're all from different backgrounds, and they share their process. And it just, I don't know, it's a way to connect with the author or the designer and just kind of really get a better sense of what they're trying to achieve. And I guess, as far as timing went, you know, much like everybody else, it's like during the pandemic, and I was like, hey, maybe this is an opportunity to do everything that I've always wanted to do, but just never had that chance. And so it kind of grew out of that pandemic era and finally having that opportunity.
Yeah.
You know, there's
very
not,
similar.
yeah, there's not like a way to say this. Like, the pandemic is awful. It's still happening for a lot of people out there, especially those that are immunocompromised. But so much of the TTRPG space, there was like a pandemic renaissance in a lot of different directions, both in like podcast reviews, like a lot of people starting channels and a lot of people making games. Like, I would say like probably half the games we've talked about came about because someone was like, all right, I'm stuck in the pandemic, like let's make, you know, X, Y, and Z. So it's, you know, if there is any silver lining to, you know, how awful that time was, at the very least we have stuff to talk about now, and we're talking now kind of because of it, because I would have never started this if not for the pandemic. So
yeah,
it's
same.
at least interesting. Yeah. So
no,
what's up? So no, go for it, Hunter. What you got?
So Bug Busters.
Yeah, Bug Busters.
What is Bug Busters? Tell us about Bug Busters.
Well, and we talked a little bit about this before we got on the air. Of all the designers that I've kind of talked to, one of the common things that has come up is like, you know, get your first game out of the way and just do it. And it's going to be trash. It's going to be garbage. Just get it over and done with. And so I kind of had that experience, but I just never published it. I just kind of realized as I was interviewing all these great designers, I was just like, yeah, this is trash. But why waste any more time getting it done? I'm just going to do it. And I used to have like a long list, and I still do have like a long list of notes of, here's a concept for a game. And Bug Busters was a tiny little one where I was like, what if there's like alien exterminators or exterminators fighting an alien invasion, a secret alien invasion, and call them Bug Busters? And that was just one sentence that I had there. And eventually I kind of went, maybe it's got some meat on the bones of that compared to some of these other ideas. and it just kept getting more fun to kind of think about and make. And then like, most design is like spent just thinking, right? So I'd go for walks, and after about an hour, I'd have all these ideas, and I'd come back and jot them down. And then eventually it just kind of had some life to it. And as I kind of started in on it, and I went, what if there's just like these scrappy exterminators in the 90s that just like, they're down and out. This is like not the job that they wanted to have. Like they'll have failed careers of like, maybe they've been downsized, or their arcade closed, or the video store closed. And now they're stuck being bug busters, but they get thrown into this unique situation where they're fighting a supernatural alien invasion, and nobody cares about them, but they're saving the world.
Great entry pitch.
One question I had, because it says their secret alien invasion is happening. Does the world know that this invasion is happening, or the bug busters like literally like no one cares and no one cares?
One of the conceits of it, and it's kind of like one of those things I try to implement. There's like a bug buster code where you don't try to involve the authorities, because you have like these secret experimental weapons. So like, you don't want the cops to be around. You don't go for help. You are the help. And so nobody knows really what's going on. Nobody would believe you. Like, it's kind of like Men in Black in a way, where like it's happening and you're accepting of it. And there's like a whole lore of where Doug, the founder of the Bug Buster franchises, he started this battle in the 80s, and now you're running a franchise, and there's like a whole lore of background story where he was fighting in the swarm wars in the 80s. But he's Doug, and he busts bugs, and he's now giving you a franchise in the sketchy part of town. And so you're in a warehouse in the middle of nowhere. There's tumbleweeds, there's like stray cats, there's you sit in there and you drink beer, play poker, and fix your bugmobile and crank that music up to 11.
Dude, I'm not gonna lie, I love Doug. It's such a good, the whole like I'm Doug and I bust bugs like stamp tag is just such a good, it's on the screen right now for anyone watching at the top of that page. It's such a good piece of marketing. And one of the things that's not in the slideshow, like one of my favorite things, is the Yellow Pages ad that's in the bundle.
Oh, the ad's really
people
good.
see on the Kickstarter. Oh, it's so good. Like, again, it's very clear that you like you do this, and you did a really fucking good job with it. And I'm excited to see it all over Twitter and the social medias and stuff, but I can't wait to actually get to the Kickstarter page and just see, it all laid out for everybody. I'm really excited for that. I
should probably note, I didn't do it on my own, because I've got 3 incredible artists working for me, Bazoopco on Instagram, Gareth Little, and he did a lot of the logos and that kind of stuff, and the patches for me. And then there's Mac Tag Art, who does the weapons, which I love his weapon design and that kind of thing. And then there's also Kyle Burrows, Kyle Hazard on Instagram, who does a lot of the bugs for me and a lot of the background stuff. So the 3 of those, just like they're so instrumental in bringing the vision together, and I'm just kind of helping make sure it happens.
The art for this is like, I mean, we were talking before the show started about like how impressive this like packet of stuff that you sent us was. Like it's so above and beyond what other people usually send out before when we're reviewing their game. Like, how early on in the process did you like start like, okay, we're gonna start accruing assets immediately to be able to send out? It's
been about a year since like the original kind of like making sure that the art was lined up and making sure that everything was coming in. And I've been sitting on it for like a long time, of going, okay, like when do we launch? How much do I trickle out? And that kind of thing. And I just kind of felt the timing was right it just makes sense now. I've got so much art, and there's actually so much that's not even shared. So, and also the benefit, we've talked about it a little bit before, where to launch your Kickstarter, like have it done as much as possible. Yeah. And so that's like, I take that to heart, where I've already got stuff going for the first kind of splat book, as I call it, playing on the Bug Buster theme, where it's called Connor's Corn Maze. And you might see it behind me in the background, where that's the kind of the first splat book, where it's called Connor's Corn Maze, where there's some strange happenings in the local corn maze, and you are sent there to investigate.
That's so funny. It's almost like Scooby-Doo-ish, you know?
It's a little bit Ghostbusters, a little bit Scooby-Doo, and it's like a fun and gun game. Like, I mean, usually there's a lot of hijinks in all the playtesting we've done. Like, you try not to involve the police, but really the police should be called, because the stuff that happens.
No, usually it's fine. Don't worry.
Usually something explodes at some point.
Yeah, hey, never call the police. That's what we've learned. So, as far as the game itself, the core system of the game, is this a hack of a system, or is this something that you've devised, from playing for a long time? And like, kind of what is the core of the game? Like, how are we going to actually play this?
I'll start by saying, like, it's got OSR sensibilities. And when I say that, it's like there's no attributes for intelligence, there's no attributes for wisdom, or there's no perception checks. Like, you go in there and it's the player curiosity and the cunning that really comes to the forefront. So, but with that said, one of the easiest games that I've ever had the pleasure of playing is Ghostbusters by Sandy Peterson and crew. But he came up with the D6 system, which is kind of like I think fallen out of flavor. It was used in the Star Wars D6 West End Games version.
Is it like it's like a dice pool?
It kind of like a dice pool,
Okay.
like kind of early days of dice pool. It didn't quite act like most dice pools. Now, what happened in the old days is you just count the number of pips on the dice. So you might roll 6 dice and you'd count them up and you'd be exhausted by the end of the session, because it was always like, I don't like counting. I don't like the math. I don't like having to roll and then count to see if I win. Right. So I took that core concept that Sandy came up with, and they had a scale going for 6 to 30 or something like that. It was just like big, right? And I went, there's got to be a way to simplify that core concept, because everybody says it's such an easy system to learn, the Ghostbuster system, T6. And I said, well, why don't we just take the top 2 of all the dice and put it onto a scale of 12? And so now when you roll 5 dice and you see the top 2 dice, you go, okay, it's like a 6 and a 5, it's 11. And that's very quick. I found people do that. And then, like almost any other hack, like it starts like that. And then you go, well, what can we do to like make it work even more? And so then we implemented luck dice, so that you can replace any of your failed rolls with another die. So, I've got like these red luck dice that you get 6 to start the session, and then you use them throughout. But then it kind of evolved into Doom dice, where, hey, you could actually take on Doom and replace some of your action dice with black dice. And then as soon as you use them on that roll, so if you're desperate, you go, okay, I'm going to use a couple Doom dice and I'll take the trauma. And then it goes into your Doom pool, which eventually evolved into this idea of a Doom stack, where you stack the black dice up. And then when that dice tower tumbles over, you're unconscious, or the equivalent of 0 hit points. And it might sound complicated. It's kind of tough to explain, but when you see it kind of play out, I find most players can kind of pick it up in like literally a minute, where they go, okay, I get it. Let's start playing. And so with that simple core mechanic, and the way the dice work, and then the trauma is all those black dice, and damage is received in those black dice. That's basically the whole system unto itself. So it's super, I think, minimal. It's kind of rules light, flavor heavy.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, that makes total sense. Just switching dice in as like a form of currency, essentially, that you're spending. One has the potential to really mess you up. I was interested in the Doom stack. I'm glad you brought it up, because I was looking at, obviously, the asset packs you sent over. And it mentions the Doom stack. Like in playing, do people's Doom stacks like fall over like quite a bit? How often does that happen within like a regular session?
Well, it kind of depends on the situation. It's kind of a nice add-on. You certainly don't have to do it. It's like a kind of a tactile Jenga tower if you want to implement it, but there's kind of some criteria. You got to be on a stable playing surface, because
right.
Somebody gets up to go to get a drink and they knock everybody's dice over and all that kind of stuff. Some people also just go, yeah, it's kind of gimmicky, which it is, but that's part of the fun and gun aspect of it. But the character
there's nothing wrong with that. That's like a fun thing.
It's fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so it's, designed to be fun, but if for some reason you don't want to do it, maybe you don't have the motor skills to do it or whatever, there's also on your character sheet a tracking system that works perfectly fine in the exact same system. And it looks like a real life Doom stack, where you're building up doom, and then once you hit that certain threshold, you go over. And depending upon what's happening at the moment, that's the repercussions of that.
Nice.
Well, that's
It
the thing with the
sounds like a
stacks
blast.
too. Yeah, well, because D6, you would be like, oh, you can stack D6s, right? But like in the core system graphic here, it says when you roll under, you receive the amount of doom by the difference in the risk roll. So if you are under by like 7 or something, you're stacking like 7 D6s. So your stack can get really, really high. It's not like it falls over at like 5 D6. Like you're talking like 15, plus D6s. That's
well, in the play testing, generally speaking, I would say the average that somebody can get to is 7 or 8. But
Really?
I've had some people get to, like my one daughter that was playing can get to like 16 or 17. So
Real dexterous, just like,
yeah, your mileage may vary, but that's kind of the variability of it. And that's kind of like the unknown. Like you never know if that one die could be the difference between it falling over or not, or you might have a few others. And you can also like offload some of yours to a group doom pool. So if you go, hey, if I take one more die, I am screwed, and you can just put it onto the group's doom pool. And it kind of creates like a joint effort. And then if the group's doom pool falls over, then bad stuff happens everywhere.
very cool.
It's I love D6 systems. There's a million. Like every time you think you figure out every way that people can use D6s, there's more ways to do it. But it's really interesting that like Ghostbusters is one of the primary inspirations for this, and you're actually using the Ghostbusters D6 system. Was that just like, oh, I like this system and this happens to fit, or was there any type of like, premix to that?
I am a huge fan of the Ghostbusters system and the Ghostbusters game, and just kind of the humor aspect of it. Like I said, it's kind of like a fun and gun type of game. Sandy Peterson, who's been on my channel, and that was one of those moments where I was like, oh wow, like I'm interviewing Sandy Peterson. I just love the game.
You made it.
People still play it today, like at Halloween in particular. And so I always like go, every time I would come up with an idea for a system, I go, oh, you know what? It's really just a ripoff of the D6 West End Games D6 system. And so I truly, I give credit to that kind of concept. So I can't help it. It's probably hardwired in me that anytime I think of a game, I'm like, okay, D6 system, like West End Games, how can I make it work? And like anything, like I said, you hack it and it evolves into its own thing. It's like graphic design. Like you steal inspiration from people, but by the time you're done with it, it looks nothing like it did in the beginning.
I feel like all designers eventually fall in love with a dice mechanic. If you are in like RPGs and you play them and you think about making your own, I think everyone just like finds their niche dice mechanic that's the one that they love. Like I'm a big D20 roll under guy, and Ryan is a massive like 2d6 partial success. So you might that D6 might just be you.
Totally. And it's funny too. I hate roll under. Like I use roll under for saving throws in this game, but I hate rolling under to achieve something. And that's partly why I like, you got to roll high. That's cool when you're trying to do stuff and roll high.
Yeah, it does confuse my tables a lot, especially when I pull up some like hack that I wrote and I'm like, yeah, it's roll under, and they're like, low's bad. No.
And then going to Ryan's complication thing, there's if you tie, and I should back up and say, I tried to make this like, how hard it is to GM. Like my heroes are the GMs, and I wanted to make this as easy to GM as possible. So the difficulty of the bugs is based on that scale of 1 to 12. So if the bug is at a 10, that's what the players are trying to get. And if they don't get it, that's the damage that they take from the bug. But if it's a tie, that's what we call it jinx. And that's where it's a success, and they'll do the weapon damage, but there's no kind of bonus to it. And then there's a complication. So, kind of like Powered by the Apocalypse. If you roll that jinx, there's a complication.
We love partial successes here.
You just got to. I mean, and doubles on 2d6s. So it's like it's like a 29-30% chance of like doubles. So you get like a 1 to 3 chance of getting that anyway. So.
And I'm still playing with that kind of last little bit. Like the rules are like 95% baked in, but for me, like rolling the box cars, I've got like 3 different paths that I'm kind of exploring, but one of them is almost like the DCC spell, where you roll on the weapon table, and based upon whatever you roll on the weapon table, that's the unique effect. Because as you might have seen in the pack that I sent, there's a lot of weird, quirky weapons, and I want those weapons to kind of be forefront in the game. And so that would be like a random table after you get that boxcar success.
Yeah, I'm excited to see the Insectosonic, Bugzooka. Definitely hijinks, I think, is definitely how this feels. I'm very excited to do some buggy hijinks. So you said the game is 95% done right now. This is one thing. I keep saying this and I keep coming back to it, so I'm sorry if I'm jumping around. Patches for advancement. So first of all, graphically fantastic, but how does that tie into the game? Like, are they like the patches that you wear on your jumper, or like how does that kind of tie in?
Yeah, there's patches that you get when you encounter different things. So there's 4 saving throws. There's only 4 attributes, I should mention, one of them being cool. And so the 4 attributes are cool, handy, agile, and tough. And each one of those also has a kind of a saving throw associated with it. And I know common knowledge would be, no, just have attributes. But I really like the flavor of saving throws. And so for each one of those, there's like web. So there's, if you encounter it where you get stuck in a web, it's an ongoing effect. And once you finally figure out, you get through those saving throws of the web to get out, you get a patch for it. So every time you encounter it, like your first like beast thing, like you build up immunity. And same with web, you learn how to get out of the webs. Or if you've been sprayed by a slug with acid, you learn, okay, I need to avoid this. So then you get your patch after the first time you encounter that. So those are kind of 4 patches associated just with the saving throws. And then the other one,
great advancement mechanic.
Well, I've seen it where like you fail, and that's why you learn, right? So that's based upon the fact that you've encountered it, you got through it, and you learn. And then there's also kind of more level-y type patches where it's the pupa patch, the larva patch, and the slug. What am I trying? I'm trying to, can't remember the name of it.
Slug hug?
Grand Splatmaster?
Oh,
Splatmaster. There's the Splatmaster and the Grand Splatmaster. And finally, when you retire after 20 adventures, if you get that far, you get the Order of Doug.
That's so great. Like, I'm so excited. Now, these are in-game patches. Is there ever going to be a time where there's going to be like physical patches that you'll be able to like pass out, or stickers or anything?
That's what I was going to ask.
I would absolutely love to get these patches into people's hands, but it's like, when you talk about it, this is kind of my first game, right? And you keep it simple. And I would love, like, I mean, if this had like a mothership exponential hockey stick growth, then I would love to add those on. But realistically, that might be something that I have to do in the future.
Hey, that just means that we have something to look forward to in the next drop for Bugbusters. So
yeah,
Bugbusters
1E,
Yeah, since we'll just call this 0E. Yeah, and have the whole game out for years and then call it 1E. Yeah. Anyway, so as far as the actual product itself, do you want to talk about like what people will be able to get from the Kickstarter? Is it primarily just going to be the book, or what are you thinking about for actually fulfillment and stuff?
Yeah, it's like I said, just keep it simple. It's going to be just the book. It's going to be a hardcover book, about 150 pages is kind of what we're shooting for. If we reach different tiers, it's just going to improve the quality of the book, whether it's bookmarks or anything like that. I just want this to, not everybody makes multiple games. Like, this might be my only game I ever get to make. So if I could leave a legacy of like a nice quality book, I'd be very happy with that.
I love a Kickstarter project that's just like, oh, you're just going to get a high quality book and you don't have to worry about a bunch of like, I have so much stuff that I've never used, or just like waiting on feature creep, But I have to ask, is there's going to be like a $3,000 gold inlaid version I'm asking for a friend that demands to buy the
one of
highest
one.
tier.
Yeah.
The one of one.
Probably not, but I might be convinced. I don't know. It's like I said, I would love, like, I mean, I have so many different ideas of the future of what Bugbusters could do. I've got like all sorts of crazy adventures and splat book ideas going around in my head. So I really hope to support this. I know one of the things that people do is they make a game and then they just leave it. My hope is to really foster a community around this.
Yeah, that's something we've discussed on the show here a couple of times. I know there's people that just like making games, and that's great. Like, I love playing a ton of games, but it's really nice when someone makes, like a game that has room to grow and that decides to stay with that. Then you can get things like UVG and UVG2E. You can get, Into the Odd and Electric Bashland and Mythic Bashland. I mean, in a game like that, like, one tier you get, like, or like two, you get a PDF, you get a hardback. We're not doing anything else. And that's so smart especially for Chris McDowell, the amount of fulfillment he's going to have to do to just be like, nope, book, that's all you're going to get. And, for your first project, that's fantastic. I really do hope that the community does build up around this. And like, as things continue to drop, we can get more and more stuff for it. Cause it'd be really nice to get, to like fulfill the original vision. Is that the kind of hope with it, is keep putting stuff out, keep letting it bigger and bigger, and eventually be able to like do all the things you wanted to do with it?
Yeah, and there's like a number of factions, and like I said, Connor's Corn Maze, it's already kind of like half done. I'm play testing it, and that would be kind of the first splat book. And then there's like all sorts of factions, like secret government agencies. There's a nihilist skateboard gang. There's other rival exterminators that might be referring back to the Swarm Wars in the 80s. And Doug and his partner might not have gotten along. So I don't want to be too spoily, but there's all kinds of stuff that we can do with Bugbusters. But ultimately, it is kind of a beer and pretzels fun and gun game. And it's meant to be fun. And like, I've had play tests where people are like crying out of the humor of the situation. And that's what you want, right?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Again, this just looks fun. I love games that really get gamey, that really kind of like dig into all the stuff. But like, when you can see a project that's obviously very clearly like thought out, well done, been worked on, like you said, like way before people are going to start to see it, and then like when you sit down at the table that it's going to be a good time. Like, these are exciting Kickstarters that I really enjoy backing. It's great. Like, at the end of the day, like when are we going to get this? That's the real question. Like, when is this actually coming to Kickstarter? And then, since most of it's done, when it does drop, what's the hope for fulfillment time? Like, when could we physically get a hardback of this in our hand?
My hope is that it goes to Kickstarter kind of end of January, early February. I don't want to interfere with the zine quest too much, but I'm like a small potato, so it's not like I'm, some big company coming in. I'll probably just fit right in with all the other folks, but that's kind of my hope, is to do it in and around that time. And then, like I said, my hope is it's like 95% laid out, and it's just that people can get the PDFs almost after that fulfillment time frame is over with, and then maybe catch some typos and fix a few things, and then send it right to the printers. So in my head, I would love to have these available for Gen Con and have them for sale at some booths or something like that. If like there's various indie publishing groups I'm part of, and maybe have some copies there.
That'd be crazy.
You got to actually go to a TTRPG con at some point. And this is going to go to a printer, right? We're not doing like drive-through PODs or anything like that. Or are you going like real
yeah,
print?
It's got to be offset print for me. Other than the PDF delivery might be through drive-through, because a lot of people actually do enjoy having that in their library and that kind of thing. But as far as the printing goes, yeah, it'll be definitely offset printing, hardback.
Nice.
Nice.
Any chance we're going to get hyperlinks in that PDF by chance? Is that a thing that you're looking at?
Well, because I'm like a multimedia kind of nerdy guy, and I see some of the PDFs that people like send, and I'm like, well, yeah, they're just a PDF. I might even go like crazy and have like a navigation system as part of the PDF, not just hyperlinked links, but like it's going to be like a video game. I don't want to overpromise, But in my world, I'm like, oh, why wouldn't you make the links within the PDF and have it like navigatable? Oh, I'm not even saying that right, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where people can like jump around, and it's like almost like a video game where you can like click on things and go to different pages.
Love
that sounds
that.
amazing. I mean, obviously, you know, for anyone that's listening to the show for any period of time, that is hyperlinks and navigable PDFs are something that we push a lot. And a lot of it's because of like post-pandemic, a lot of people still aren't playing at tables. So being able to have a PDF, you know, I can flip through a book relatively quick. I can stick my finger in a page and go back and forth. But when you have like 150 page PDF, it's so nice to be able to hit the bookmark tab or be able to click back and forth. So it's really great to hear that that's something that's also going to be part of it as well.
And the other thing too is like I want to provide something for free so that people, you know, can get a feel for the game. And also, you know, when you're a GM and you go, okay, share my book and like all that kind of stuff, I want to have like a free PDF called like the employee welcome letter, where you're onboarded, and that's your character creation part of it. That'll be for free and available for anybody. So you can go to your Kinko's or your Staples and do a coil bound book and print it out. And you can have like an extra 2 or 3 of those kicking around for those occasions when you're playing with a team of people and you just go here.
That's what's up. I noticed in the picture of the artist, and maybe like a peek at your shirt right now, you're wearing a Bugbuster shirt. So those exist in the world already. Is there going to be a way to get that maybe not through the Kickstarter, through your website or something? Or is that a solo project thing?
You can buy them right now on my Spreadshirt website. You can get the Insectosonic. You can get Doug I Bust Bugs shirt. You can get the Bugbuster logo. You can get the Insectosonic and No Bug Too Big. So there's a whole bunch of shirts like that you can get right now. I take no cut in that. That is like, I reduced it to, I'm not making money off of it. You're paying whatever the absolute bare minimum is for those shirts. I think you can get to that through my YouTube page.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, I just made a Post-it note, so I'm definitely going to snag one of those.
Better get some Bugbuster shirts now. So.
Yep, getting a couple now. I definitely have way too many shirts, and yet somehow still feel like I don't have enough TTRPG shirts. There's plenty of people out there that need to get like a bonfire or a spread shirt or something and just throw a design up, because I can tell you right now, I would rock it all day. What else can we say about Bugbusters? I mean, this is such an exciting, like I said, you know, when you reached out and when I saw this the first time, first of all, again, blown away by just the media package in general, but the system, the game, I mean, it really speaks to what I really enjoy about games. First of all, 2D6, the art's fantastic. It just sounds fun at the table. I don't really know what else to say about it. I'm excited to hear about it. I can't wait for it to actually drop. Is there any, have we, I don't know I think we talked about this a little bit. Is there any chance you might think about coming back and maybe running some Bugbusters if you get the time? Yeah,
for sure. Like during the Kickstarter, I would absolutely love, I can run you through the early edition of Connor's Corn Maze. And
I think we would love that.
Yeah, that's going to be a really good time.
I already know my character. His name is Chad. He also cleans pools during the summer, you know?
I should point out on the character sheet, there's no first names, last names, or anything like that. You get a call sign like Top Gun, right? So, and nobody remembers Chad, the ex pool cleaner. Like it's
you mean Pool Boy?
Pool Boy, yeah. Like so, whatever your call sign, come in, Pool Boy, like. That's going to be it. So there's like a whole name patch on the character sheet that has the call sign for it.
That's awesome. Is that something you pick at character creation, or is that something that like during the first session someone does something and you're like, oh, that's you from now on? Like, or is it mix of both, or how does that go?
No, you come up with a call sign, and as you roll your pass and you get your whether it's like the pass are like ex arcade manager or ex video store clerk or Radio Shack salesperson or
nighttime professor,
disbarred lawyer, parolee, drifter, all these people that have like kind of been down and out, they've been downsized and now they're a Bugbuster. So you get like also a bit of a background of people you know and an item or items that can add a little bit of flavor to your background. And then, yeah, based upon that, if you can come up with a cool call sign, then that would be the icing on the cake.
Yeah. Well,
Cool.
we're gonna hold you, Hunter, I think, too. And Gary, remind me, because I'm gonna forget in about 3 seconds, that you are absolutely Pool Boy. That is the character you're gonna get when Gary comes back
100%.
on the show.
I'm so okay with it.
Yeah.
I won't forget. So.
Oh, we can also ask Ozo, because he'll remember all of it, and he's here for every episode.
Very true.
So yeah, thanks for being here. So yeah, I mean, this is coming soon, as you said. It's dropping at the end of January, beginning of February. I'm just wrapping everything up as far as like what we've talked about, so my brain knows. 150-page hardcover. We're pretty much going to get like a PDF and a hardcover tier. It's going to be pretty much ready to go. You're going to come on the show. We're playing with us during the Kickstarter, and then when the Kickstarter ends, we'll get the PDF and it'll drop. So yeah, I mean, there's just not much more to say. Like, this is just a really exciting game, and I'm blanking right now, because this is exactly the kind of game I want to see, and exactly the kind of game that we're excited to have here on the show. So what else? What's any last words you can say about Bugbuster? Anything that we can do to help get this, more into people's hands?
Well, even, aside from Bugbusters itself, which I appreciate all the kind words, and, ultimately what I would love is like people watching your show, I know, are into indie games. People that watch my channel are indie like game enthusiasts. And I just think, in the world of Wizards of the Coast and all the big players, like, so get out there and support indie games. And it's a tough slog. If you can get out there and people, it means a lot to people, indie game designers, when you give them a kind word on social media, or just go, yeah, like, good job, keep it up. It's not an easy road to go on. And so get out there and support indie game designers.
Yeah, absolutely. And for anyone that likes our show, the things that we do, Gary does better. So if you like our show, if you like our interviews, if you like the game pitches, or we do a creator cuts where people come on the show and they'll run the game. We've been doing side quests where we'll have creators come on and actually kind of teach the game a little bit. But going through your podcast, watching the way you do things, I know when you had the Outer Rims, we were talking about that a little bit before, and you had a bunch of the people on flipping through everything, part of it. It's just really great content, and as you said, it's really great to see someone who supports the indie scene. And I know we were talking before about getting more of these indie podcast people together, but it's just like we should, and it's nice to see people doing the things that we hope for, because the reason we even started this was exactly what you're saying, is to get more eyes on the indie space. So for our listeners, you definitely, if you haven't checked out the Dieku Podcast, it's absolutely fabulous. And where can people find the Dieku Podcast? Where can people find any more content, or if they have any more questions or want to see more about Bugbusters, where can people find all those things?
Sure. Well, Dieku Games is kind of my handle a lot along all the social media and YouTubes and everything. And it's funny, like, you decide on names and you go Dieku Games, like Die, and then KU, like a haiku. I wanted it like simple game design, but people read and go, Dieku, is that how you say? And I'm like, no, it's like a die. It's Dieku. So
that's one of the first things I wanted to ask too, is like, where did Dieku come from? So, it's good to know all the way here at the end.
And it's like, I don't know if it's an Easter egg or if it's just me unwilling to admit that nobody gets it. At the end of every one of my interviews, I do a haiku based upon the interview and the game. At the end of it, like, when you like it trails off, there's a haiku of each designer that's been on my show about the game they've made. And so if he really wanted to go through, you could scroll to the end and look at it, each haiku. And they're usually pretty bad because I'm not a good poet. But anyways, I tried to it's like the Geico lizard it's the haiku and the Dieku. So that was my attempt at kind of clarifying that.
And just more complication on top of it. It's great. It's just, the space is so big and so broad, and so many people, like I said, Luka, I'm going to say it now wrong too, Luka Rejic, Rekish wrong forever, and I'm missing it here. But the first time I heard it correctly was when I watched your episode. So, and I still don't know how to say Nate Dream's name. So I guess one day we'll figure that out.
Nate 𝗕𝗨𝗚. But I've screwed up too, as far as like I think famously for I had 𝗕𝗨𝗕𝗨𝗦𝗧𝗘𝗥𝗦 on my show. And at the time he was like, well, it's like I said, can I get it phonetically? And he was like, no, it's like impossible. And I was like, what? And so I went in kind of a bit blind and I like totally butchered his name. And there's this like awkward pause after, like, I mean, I just like totally butchered it. But anyways, I go, how can you not do it phonetically? So it was like, it can't be that hard to do, but now I know. And same with Luca, I did, I think an audio podcast where I did the exact same thing, but, you know, I've learned over time to their names, and as you get into the little world, but yeah, it happens.
You just gotta look in the mirror and say it over and over and over, you know?
There you go. The ins and outs of podcasting here from two indie podcasters here on the show. Listen, Garry, seriously, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. Again, big fans of the show. Really enjoyed having this talk. Can't wait to have you back on the show. Absolutely. And just, I mean, it's already the end of November, so maybe 2 months from now, we'll have Garry back on the show. We'll bust some bugs. We'll be able to see the Kickstarter in action. Seriously, really appreciate you being here.
Well, I appreciate being on, and just keep up the good work because I do love your channel and podcast, and you're doing some really good stuff. So keep going.
Thank you.
It genuinely means a lot to you. Say that.
Yeah,
so we
absolutely.
Really appreciate it.
It means a lot from you.
Yeah. So, Garry said all of his socials and stuff, but everything that you need to know on where to find him, where you can find Bugbusters, I always point down. It's not really there right now, but we'll be in the links, whether it's on podcast or on YouTube. You can click all of that, and you can always find us at our link tree. Just